Greetings to you viewers from across the globe. You're welcome to the show Viewpoint, where we discover perspectives and embrace dialogue. I'm your host, Odiawa AI for Veegil Media. You would do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Veegil Media, and follow us across various social media platforms. And don't forget to download the app, the Veegil app on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. On the show today, we'll be talking about protracted stay in power. Now, when I mean a protracted stay in power, what has actually influenced the title of today's topic of discourse is the recent elections which actually took place in Liberia and the supposed or alleged threat, which was raising its ugly head that there was some perceived coup trying to find its way into Liberia. Now, it's no news that there was a wave of coups which actually was taking place across Africa recently. We should now look at it. What actually is the military caught out for? How have they influenced? Now, the role of the African military in governmental administration begs the question whether the military have remained aloof in the period in which they meddled into African politics. Could they have also contributed more to nation building or destruction of the nation with resources at their disposal? Did the nation also achieve great stability and security in the post-independence years during military rule? And also, lastly, expectedly, the military in Africa claims that their contribution to developmental process was to provide leadership and chart dynamic directions in times of crisis. Now, the question is, did they actually succeed? Now, this should be food for thought, like I always say. We should wine and dine about this in our brains. Well, in my own opinion, it would be that the military's protracted stay in power was an error of judgment with the benefits of hindsight. It should have confined its energies mainly to backing civil power, strengthening and safeguarding our political structures and democracy. It should have limited its emergence to brief and sharp meddling or interventions, not taking longer months running into years, so as a new election can take place to bring in a new leader. It would therefore have been a corrective act directed most importantly at the rapid restoration of the people's power and democratic structures. No one can really qualify or quantify opportunity cost to a nation with all certainty. One might begin to ponder the part played by the political class in the development of a political culture. The military, particularly renowned heads of states, across Africa. Just to mention a few, we could talk about Jerry Rawlings. We could talk of Kaduna Nziogu. We could talk of Abacha. We could mention Muritala Mohammed. Now, did they actually set out to discourage or disfigure the political class? Knowingly or unknowingly, the military steered itself into a corner from which was construed by the deprived. In all seriousness, as a grand champion of the nation, at the decline of military rulership, threats of confederation, real federation, restructuring, secession, and devolution of powers pervaded the political space with attendant fears and perpetual instability. Now, as we speak now, evidently, all tensions emanate from sectarianism and resource appropriation, or the idea of national patrimony as the basis of ownership of localized resources. Now, indeed, all ethnic nationalities and other intrinsically need the African space to actualize their respective aspirations. Now, I'm not talking about Nigeria now. I'm not restricting it to Nigerians now. Now, they need to actually actualize their respective aspirations and will probably not ask for less. In any case, the bonds of unity are fabricated on old fixed structures that continually impair whatever we do to achieve development. The trickle down has been a vision into the dark. Poverty and, poverty levels increasingly multiplying against the backdrop of depleting resources. The population also is increasing. They are creating new formidable tensions like violent crimes emanating from this increased population, religious extremism, squint-eyed fumbling citizenry, and flawed citizenship. Nepotism also is also there on another side, and revolt particularly coming from the energetic youths. Now, as we speak, African nations are presently under siege, largely out of our own making. Could we be lacking foresight? That's another question. Peace within our country and every other African nation, like unity, is a matter of who is giving grounds or who is actually paying the price for it. So as long as a major ethnic nationality across Africa isn't killing each other, and the minorities are not languishing or suffering, neither is it also reported in the press, there is peace all over. Peace and unity can always be enforced by whims and caprices, which eventually become solutions. Others can be intimidated or compelled into line by the use of force. And of course, the army is the instrument which is to be used to implement this force. It has inadvertently allowed itself to become the political instrument of the mighty, which we see all over the place. For instance, in my country here, Nigeria, citizens of the oil-producing Niger Delta in Nigeria are poised for a showdown with the rest of Nigeria. And if recent clashes are anything to go by, their youths appear to be well furnished for war with the rest of Nigeria because of the callous exploitation of their natural resources, which has been going on for decades. Now, while they are neglected in the states for destitution, many among the Hausa and Fulani Muslims of the core north who desire to live under the supremacy of Islamic Sharia are incensed that the rest of Nigeria wants to abdicate their religious freedom with each other's group. Now, there is often bitterness over previous scars which have been seriously addressed. I beg your pardon, they have never seriously been addressed. It is an eloquent and most direct assessment of the political and economic states in Nigeria. Such existing political structures and their defenders wish to sweep typically under the carpet and choose not to raise any dust over it. But even at that, it is not a skeletal sketch of the real politicking. Frankly speaking, I choose to remain broad-minded, though intensely agitated by the Nigerian current state of affairs. Now, while people of the Niger Delta speak haughtily without question, or should I say pre-verification to sharing their endowments. When I mean their endowments here, I'm talking about the resources which we all know the Niger Delta is endowed with. I'm talking about oil here, crude oil. Now, this endowment, sharing it with the rest of Nigeria, I must say, they have been denied a voice through existing structures from contributing to decisions on how the benefits can be disbursed. They've been served devastated land in return, stone for bread, bullet for dialogue, blood for clean water. Disease is also on the other side, which is prevalence, which has replaced good health, and darkness has also replaced light. Now, for some reason, development of solid minerals that are abound in these minority areas have been stalled. There is need for the military to be sharpened more than ever before to quell the restiveness, while one man, one vote actually ensures that they should be permanently crowded out of the decision-making process and platforms. The security forces are primarily fashioned to quell patrimonial expressions. There are few sons and daughters who pass through the eye of the needle to the crumbs and are also too busy savoring and displaying the bits of silver from the master's table to understand the issues of the Nigerian Federation. Now, you can count them that at the tip of the fingers of one hand. They are the outpost of Nigeria's power brokers. You should understand what I mean by that. Now, as we lampoon the North, in all their years they have held the national power, it is pertinent to emphasize the fact that they hold the spotlight in their assessments because they have had control of the national power, as I have endeavored to demonstrate. Coups are directed as the source of power, not at those who are peripheral to it or are not central to its equations. For instance, Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nziogu School illustrates this, frankly speaking. He took out the northern and western leaders because they controlled national political power or were affiliated one way or the other to it as at the time. Sir Ahmadu Bello and Chief Samuel Akintola actually confirmed this. Now, any other coup after that would be ingrained in the same parochial favor, because it's from there all these interesting cases began to brew. Now, as I have sought to impute, some leaders currently are really local champions. We must tell ourselves the truth. The competition of power and oil revenue between the major tribes still defines the texture of Nigeria's politics and economic interactions. Because since independence, no Nigerian leader has actually been able or is capable of raising above this use of oil revenue. None would have moved the nation any inch without it. We take time to pay attention closely to Fela's song. He was complaining about oil being mismanaged. Up till now, it's still the same story being told. Now, as a sign, the politics of ethnic nationalism has seen the decoupling of the area of the Midwest from the Yoruba West and the Eastern Delta from the Igbo East, and the emergence of the South-South bloc. Now, the Middle Belt, as we speak now, is disengaging from the Northern hegemony. We know the Middle Beltan states. We're talking of the likes of Kogi and Jos. This movement must subsequently lead on to increased ethnic identification among the constituent nationalities within the nation. Those who wish to stand in the way of the peaceful change will reap the whirlwind at the end of the day. Wisdom on its own part may flow in the veins of the elders, but their failure to actually grasp the forces and need for change resides in their brains. If we must tell ourselves the truth or be frank with ourselves, the phenomena of Jaja Okpobo, Isaac Boro, Kensa Rowiwa, Oka Egbesu, the Odua People's Congress, the Arewa People's Congress, Biafra, the Urobos, Thieves, and the list goes on. I could continue mentioning names of each ethnic identity, may be construed as insurrections, but they are really youth revolts against the status quo, founded on deceit or deception accepted by their elders. And like the legendary Soweto of South Africa, the Soweto Youth Revolt, if you will recall, of the 90s, the Kosovo ethnic nationalism, Eritrean independence movement. History is always on the side of the deprived and the oppressed, if we will look at it with a keen eye. These movements have sown seeds that are transferable from generations to generations, and these seeds, once sown on the part of a perceived or apparent oppression, germinates and gestates and ferments, and in due time finds a space in time to keep on flourishing. Now, the nation may not disintegrate, but the status quo and inherent, which lie on ground, may collapse. Like Bob Marley would say in one of his songs, only time would tell. Frankly speaking, truth be told, the time is actually now for the Nigerian nation and, largely speaking, Africa as a continent to convert its aging leaders to the digital age. One of intellectual poise, dialogue, and also a dynamic experimentation for them to follow. Because as we speak also, Nigeria is gradually also becoming a nation of no dominant values, except that everything and anything can be rationalized and accommodated. Government's decree, as far as we speak, we have no choice. It becomes a holy option. We would frequently say, by usually consoling each other in a manner of political surrender, it go better. Now so it be. Live on like that, as people always say, or passes by. We might also add that the environment and defense of the Constitution to the end unreservedly, because it's my contention that equitable resources should actually be dispensed, or revenue allocation formula will actually form the basis of lasting federalism, if we are to actually practice true federalism. The leadership path cut by African nations for itself since independence and by the military, particularly in their years in power, has paid questionable gains, as Nigerian professor would say, the emeritus of mathematics, Chike Obi. He actually enunciated by saying our leaders can follow the Churchillian path. That's Winston Churchill of the UK, former prime minister during World War II. He said we might follow the Churchillian path of the open criticism, not silent opposition, because it is apparent that we had in the past chosen and welcomed the Hitlerian ideology. Hitler was also a one-time head of state of Germany, who was actually the #1 man who initiated World War II. Now, impose restrictions on information available to subordinates as an essential feature of his exercise of power meant that no one could argue with him on a basis of equal knowledge. Some leaders will actually have taken advantage of poverty and ignorance because that was actually the bedrock of deceit and misrule. We must always continue to tell ourselves the truth. Nigerians and the African nations at large, because when we talk about this ethnic identity, it doesn't restrict it. We don't restrict it to Nigeria as we speak. We could recall some time ago the killings between the Hutsis and Tutsis. It was gory, total genocide. Now, Nigerians and African nations need not only to be outspoken against and for their leaders, they need to outrightly speak out. Regional, religious, and ethnic affiliations, irrespective or notwithstanding. The armed forces, indeed, the army I mean here, is not greater than the nation if we want to look at it. Patriotism is not an exclusive domain of the military. They are neither the custodians of the nation nor the defenders of the constitution. They are just a mini part of the whole, serving a particular purpose, which is to defend the territorial integrity of the nation. This defense function is a collective duty of the diverse and united people of Nigeria or other African nations, presumably educated and schooled in the state of the system and conscious of their individuals and collective obligations. Now, on the matter, which is a suggestion that certain regions, institutions, and individuals are not above the law. I'm Odiawa AI for Veegil Media, and the show has been Viewpoints, where we discover perspectives and embrace dialogue. We were or had been talking about protracted stay in power. You will do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Veegil Media, and follow us across various social media platforms. Don't forget to download the app on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Thanks for watching.